Has your business achieved business leadership excellence? What would the impact be if you could elevate the leadership across your business? How would it play out? How would it play out for the bottom line, for the culture, for your customers? What would they notice if you had a high level of leadership across your organization? Hey folks, Dr. Kevin here. Today we're going to talk about business leadership excellence, what it is and how to do more of it. Today's video, we're going to dissect and talk about the 4 pillars of business leadership excellence and give you some tools and some strategies to be able to lead at a higher level and to create that higher level of business leadership excellence across your organization. What are the 4 foundations of business leadership excellence? Well, like concentric circles that build on each other, the center one being leading the self. Before you can lead anyone else, you have to lead yourself. And that's really at the core of business leadership excellence, is helping to create an environment where people are leading intentionally. They're breaking their patterns of thinking and behaving and leading on purpose. Leading on purpose with intention is the core, the first foundation of business leadership excellence. The second foundation of business leadership excellence is leading others, leading the dynamic in the relationships to leave others better off. The third is leading teams and understanding team dynamics. And the fourth is leading the business or the enterprise. So in this video, we'll dissect the 4 foundations of business leadership excellence so you have the skills and the tools to be able to elevate leadership in your organization. The foundation, the core of business leadership excellence is that leaders must lead themselves first. Before you can lead anyone else, you've got to lead yourself. That's where it all starts. And leading yourself is all about being intentional, leading on purpose. How do you do it? There's some core skills that if you utilize will help you lead more purposefully and more intentionally. Now I've seen business leaders who believe they're doing the right thing. They're doing the best thing for the organization and it has detrimental consequences, negative consequences that they don't see because their bias is impacting their decision-making process in ways that they don't know, see, or understand. They lack awareness. When we talk about intentional leadership, it starts with awareness. You have to have awareness to be intentional, and you have to have presence to be aware. So let's start at the beginning. If you want to lead yourself first, you have to be able to develop, as a leader, a sense of presence. And you've seen those leaders before who have that intense leadership presence. They are riveted right in on the present moment. They're not spending their time when they're with you, off in the future or in the past. They're right here, right now. That's where the ability to master yourself as a leader begins, is your ability to develop presence. You must have a technique that helps you develop presence over time. A lot of folks will just practice basic meditation, learning how to shut down your thinking and to just be in this moment, right here, right now. In fact, most leaders, most people spend so much of their time concerned about the future with anxiety and worry, or worried about the past with regret, guilt, and shame, or what have you. We generate all these conditional emotions and then we carry that, and that impacts how your brain is functioning. If you want to achieve business leadership excellence, you have to start by developing your ability to have presence. So make sure that you're building a discipline, that when you do that discipline, your mind is in the present moment. Whether it's exercising, whether it's meditating, whether it's a spiritual practice, that's the platform for leading intentionally as a leader. Presence. From a place of presence, then you're in a position to really develop self-awareness. Now, awareness is all a function of your attention. Where do you place your attention? As a busy business executive, a business leader, we're focused on 27 different things all at once. And it's easy to miss what's happening right in front of us. With presence, then you can develop awareness of your self. Awareness actually happens on multiple levels. Awareness of yourself, then you can have awareness of the situation, or the other person, and then awareness of the situation. Key for business leadership. So when we talk about awareness of yourself, what is it we're even talking about? There's three elements of the self, right? Your mind, your thinking, your feeling, your body, and your behavior. Cultivating a deeper level of awareness and mastery of those three areas are the essential platform that effective business leaders have developed. So to recognize that you've developed patterns in your thinking and a belief system, a bias set that you probably don't even know or see. You developed it early on in your life, and now it's your operating principle. It's your mode of operation. We don't even have awareness of it, but it drives the decisions we make. It's the lens we look at the world through. To have presence and to have awareness means to be able to remove that lens, understand with greater clarity what your bias is. A lot of folks will do assessments to help gain that deeper level of awareness. I love the Myers-Briggs, very helpful, the DISC, there's Hogan, there's a bunch of different assessments that I encourage you to utilize to gain that deeper level of awareness of what your patterns are, so you can meet others more effectively where they are and not just speak from your own style. Nice distinction I like to make here between leadership style and leadership strategy. Your style is nothing more than your personality playing itself out at work. Your strategy is really about being intentional. With presence, you can develop awareness of your thinking, of your feeling, and of your behaving, and then you're in a position with awareness to move with intention. Intention is really about non-reactivity. Right? To not react, as most humans do, right? As humans, we're hedonistic. We move towards what feels good and away from what doesn't feel good. It's hardwired in. Now, how do you cut through that reactive tendency? Only with presence and awareness can you be in a position to truly behave in an intentional way. This is the neat thing, that if you have a vision of who you want to be as a leader, you can start to cut through those patterns you may have developed, those patterns that, while they may be the secret to your success, they're also your Achilles heel. And it'll set you up to be much more strategic in how you engage with others and how you lead your life. The first foundation, the first pillar of business leadership excellence is leading yourself first. Before you can lead anyone else, you've got to lead yourself. The second business leadership excellence foundation is in leading others, right? First, you lead yourself, you become more aware, more present, more intentional, and then you're in a position to be able to lead others. And when we talk about leading others and managing the relationship dynamic that happens when you engage with another particular person as a leader, your job is to leave them better off, to help them get better, not just to drive accountability and make them do your job. Now, but to get them to bring their heart to the game. And that's done through a different set of skills, right? It's done through demonstrating empathy, demonstrating vulnerability, by being open, by being authentic and genuine. And in fact, there's a couple strategies you can utilize that really help demonstrate that quality to the other individual in a way that will help them increase their engagement and really bring their heart to the game. You know, the Gallup organization suggests that just 30% of the people are actively engaged in their job, right? 30% are really bringing their heart to the game. They're excited to be there. They're doing the heavy lifting, moving the organization forward. 50% are going along to get along, and then you've got 20% who are an anchor on the organization. And the number one overarching influencing factor around whether or not employees are engaged or not comes back to leadership and the relationship they have as a leader. Your job as a leader of others is to build that relationship. It starts with the key strategies and building that relationship that increases the engagement and helps people bring their A game. The three strategies are active listening, open-ended solution-focused questions, and feedback. Now, when doing active listening, right, it comes back to that skill of presence, to simply be with somebody in the moment, to not solve the problem when they come to you, but actually listen. And with the hundreds, the thousands of leaders and executives I've worked with, it always comes back to listening, people feeling heard. As a leader, as an executive, you're really good at having the solution and solving the problem. But often, solving the problem is not the best thing for the organization. Getting others to solve the problem, that elevates everybody. And that happens by starting with just reflecting back. When somebody comes to you with an issue, instead of solving it right away, instead of having your idea, no, backing up and just reflecting. What I hear you saying is, and repeating back verbatim what they're saying. What this is shown to do is actually change how their brain is functioning, especially when they're frustrated. Repeating back what I hear you say is, right, using those terms to be able to repeat back what you're hearing them say actually decreases that reactivity they might be experiencing, shuts down their limbic system, that reactive system in the brain, and gives them access to the genius part of their brain. And as a leader of others, that's what you're trying to do, help them access their inner genius. Once you get the caveman brain out of the way through active listening, then you're in a position to ask open-ended, solution-focused questions. And in doing that, you start to access that prefrontal cortex, the executive function, the genius. You ask them those open-ended questions in a way that gets them to critically think about how to solve a problem in a way that they'll take full ownership. They'll be engaged around, and they'll be able to then create accountability around. It's not your idea, it's their idea. And that is effective leadership, is helping it to be their idea so they'll own it. Right? So open-ended, solution-focused questions. What does that mean? Open-ended. It's not a yes or no question, but it requires them to think. For example, what's the first step in your mind in designing a solution? What's the first step? What's the next step forward? Right? Getting them to think about what the path forward is. That's key. That's the open-ended. The solution-focused part is really focused on the solution and not the problem, because the problem is the issue that will get them stuck. If you want to get them unstuck and really start to think differently, you have to ask those wide open, creative, strategic questions that get them to find the path forward. The third strategy is the feedback. That's where you create accountability. See, when you're asking the open-ended, solution-focused questions, you help them discover the path forward to be able to execute more effectively, and then you can hold them to it by providing feedback. Hey, when we talked last Tuesday, here's what you said you were going to do. What's the status? And in this way, you can continually produce feedback that's going to help them be able to move forward more intentionally. And the beautiful thing is, when people get to a position where they're accepting feedback, they're more open to give feedback. And when they give feedback, they can receive feedback. Because when you're leading others, it really comes down to being able to strengthen and solidify that channel of communication, of empathy, of connection, of cohesion, and it develops collaboration and effective communication. Your job as a leader of others is not to tell people what to do, but to lift them up so that they can thrive. That is the second foundation, the second pillar of business leadership excellence. Now, the third pillar of business leadership excellence is leading teams, right? So teams, as they say, the whole is larger than the sum of its parts. In fact, a team is its own individual, unique entity. It's like a creature in and of itself with its own personality. Most leaders fail to understand that, and thus they end up leading the individuals and not the team. And then what you end up having is a siloed team that the individuals on that team think of their own primary team as them and their direct reports, as opposed to a really high level, more of an enterprise team where people look across the team and have allegiance to that unit. So the first question to ask team members is, where's your loyalty? What's your primary team? As a leadership team, your primary team can't be to your individual silo. It's got to be to the higher level, right? To the higher level team, with a higher station on the mountain, so that individuals on that team have more of a 360 view of the organization. Now, on a team, there's some really essential things that must be in place. A team mission is essential. If a team doesn't understand where it's trying to go, the team's really going to start to fragment. So having a clear mission for the team is really essential. Secondarily, roles and goals have to be spelled out. Now, here's the neat thing, right? Once you have roles and goals spelled out and you have a clear mission, you have a purpose, everybody knows what you're trying to accomplish, then it's really important to dial in and understand the culture, because culture is what happens when people come together. Every team will have its own unique culture, and in that culture come a set of strengths and some blind spots. It is so important to understand those strengths and the blind spots when you're leading a team so that you can do it with greater purpose and intention. And truly, you can get more performance out of a team that understands what its culture is. So to break down, there's 4 elements in culture. And I think of them as creating a star team, right? When you're creating a star team, you have to understand what are those 4 elements, and what of those 4 elements does the team prefer, and what does the team defer? The 4 elements are simply this. It's creating a star team. It's a strategic element, the tactical element, the analytic element, and the relational element. Let's break it down real quick. The strategic is the big picture, high level, abstract, creative, future focused, visionary element that plays out on a team. Every team has it. Some will prefer it and will use it when solving problems. Initially, other teams, it'll become their last or their detriment. It'll be the last thing they think about. That is, teams that defer or that don't prioritize that strategic element will often be the teams that do a lot of firefighting and not fire prevention. They'll be down in the weeds doing the same thing, but not seeing the big picture and creating systems that tie everything together so you don't have to do the same thing over and over and over again. So pay attention. There's a strategic element on a team. There is a tactical element on a team. That tactical element is really that get things done quality. It's the execution, the force to drive things forward, to make things happen. A lot of teams are really good at that operational quality, that tactical quality, and they get things done, but sometimes at a detriment. So there's the tactical and there's the strategic. The analytic quality is that data-driven, research-oriented, analytic teams. The ones that prefer that analytic quality, that have that as the natural part of their DNA, are the ones that when there's a problem on the table, they'll dig down into the weeds. They'll research to methodically and thoroughly understand the situation at hand. Unfortunately, when it's their preference, what I see teams will tend to stall and bog down, lose the big picture, and perhaps not execute effectively. And then lastly, we have the relational teams. Those are the teams that prefer the human interaction, that quality of cohesion and collaboration where there's high empathy. Now, I've seen teams that prefer that as far as the team totem goes, as I call it. Teams that prefer that will build a robust, cohesive environment at the expense of execution. It's really important to find out what is the DNA of your team. So find an assessment. I use the totem assessment I designed that helps teams understand, are they more strategic, tactical, analytic, or relational? And the cool thing is, once you begin to understand what the preferences are of your team, you can begin to be a lot more purposeful in creating a high performance team. And that's ultimately what you're trying to create, is a team that really leads, that dissolves the silos, and acts as a singular entity leading the organization forward. A high performance team is one that solves problems intentionally, right? And so that same STAR methodology I talked about, strategic, tactical, analytic, and relational, is essential in creating a high performing team to solve problems. The first thing you need to do when a team is solving problems is enter the analytic phase. Whether or not it's a preference of the team will need to understand the problem it's trying to solve. Some teams will undervalue that because it's not their preference. As a leader, it's imperative and essential that the team takes time to understand, to leave no stone unturned, and to not let individuals fragment off and go dig in the data, to pull the team cohesively to understand the issue at hand. And when all the stones are turned and all the data is on the table, then you can move to the strategic phase, which is really where that brainstorming happens. A lot of teams will overlook that brainstorming. They keep doing the same thing. They look at the data, they make a decision and move forward. Or really what they do is make a decision and then tactically move forward, find the data to support it, and then all the while fail to innovate. The strategic quality is when you spend time to really make sure you're brainstorming, coming up with larger out-of-the-box solutions, right? To cohesively bring that team together as a singular unit to make sure you're seeing the big picture, you're weighing all the options and all the possibilities, and you're innovating, thinking creatively. Then when you have all those innovations on the board, right, the team's role is to prioritize what are the key strategic initiatives we need to focus on and to build action planning around those key strategic initiatives. And that's really when you enter the tactical phase. Who's going to do what? When are we going to do it? To build the measurables that move the team forward, all the while keeping in mind that relational element to get people on board. So there's engagement, there's buy-in, people are excited about this. So there's some real strategic, a framework for helping teams solve problems most effectively and intentionally. And when you master that, when you start to pull the team together, you really are in a position to create a high-performance team. That's when you start to really achieve that business leadership excellence in leading teams. That's the third pillar. Last but not least, the fourth pillar of business leadership excellence is around leading the business, leading the enterprise leadership. Now, what that requires is great clarity around what the vision is. Back to that strategic thinking I talked about, it's essential when leading the business to have complete crystal clarity of where the organization is going. This requires a planning process, right? To make sure you and the executive team are moving through that strategic planning process to continually have clarity of the vision and recognize the vision as a static force won't work. It's got to be something that evolves and changes, but it's a destination on the horizon that you never arrive at. It's always out there a ways. Once you have clarity of that vision, though, that's when you break down the goals: the 3-year, the 1 year, the 3-month goals, the weekly goals. In this way, when you have clear goals that are aligned with each of the business units, or that are spread throughout each of the business units and all aligned towards the larger vision, then you're setting up the organization for some real high-level business leadership. And along those lines, there's a bunch of systems that need to be in place. In fact, I identify 7 core systems that a business has to have and that a business leader must oversee to make sure the business is leading the organization forward. Now, also recognize that when you're leading the business, it is not about being in the weeds. It's not that analytic quality. It's not the tactical quality. It's more the strategic, big picture quality and the relational quality that are essential at a high level to have clarity of the vision and to bring people on board, to make sure you're creating cohesive teams that are all driving the same direction. Now, when you think about the different units in the organization, it's really important to break it down a level too, to look at each of the departments. Sales, what are the processes? How do you measure the key performance indicators in your sales organization, in your marketing organization, in your finance organization, in your operations? How are you measuring? What are the key performance indicators and how are you improving? What are the process improvement systems that you're putting in place? Essential when you're talking about business leadership. The other, I think thing that's really important is having clarity of the org chart. What is the organizational chart currently? What's the org chart of the future? And what are the job descriptions that fit into that org chart? So everyone has complete clarity of what they're doing, when they're doing it, how they're doing it, and they continually know if they're on track or not. They're getting that feedback and they can measure themselves against the goals of the organization. And when your employees hit the goal, they're recognized, they celebrate. And when they don't hit the goal, they're looking at what it is that got in the way. Having those kind of measures in place is absolutely essential. Being able to not only understand profitability in the financial end of things, but understand what it takes to get that, right? Sales is the input, the output is profitability, operations in the middle. And how do you continually pay attention to all of these units while governing the growth of the organization? It's essential. As a business leader, you've got to pay attention to the enterprise at a high level. And this is a key thing when you're working with your leadership team, to make sure that the leadership team, the individuals on that team, aren't bound down into their silos. Often I'll see on the leadership team, the sales individual is looking at the sales team and failing to look across at the other executives around the table as the primary team. It's important to reset that you break down those silos, that everyone is looking at on the executive team cohesively moving the same direction and has a stake in hitting those larger goals. You create that clear business leadership by having that clarity of the vision, by having the systems and processes in place that help automate the path forward, and by making sure that you are keeping your station at the top of the mountain, seeing the vision, not getting pulled down into the trenches, and bringing the people along, not just executing. That's business leadership. That, in conjunction with creating high-performance teams that really utilize and leverage the culture of the team in a way that's very intentional to create that high-performance team, and leading the individuals in a way that leaves them more engaged and gets them out of their own way, all the while leading yourself with greater purpose, greater awareness, and greater presence. Those elements alone are the core to creating an exceptional business. That is what it takes for business leadership excellence, leading on those 4 levels. It is absolutely possible to create a world-class business, a business that outshines the competition, that really moves to become a business of the future. I know it's possible. That's what I help businesses do. And I hope today's information has been helpful for you and lit a fire and helped you understand what you can do to move your organization forward. And remember to lead on those 4 fronts. Enterprise-wide, looking at how you bring the whole organization together to move towards a vision. Team-wise, looking at how you master those dynamics and understand the team culture to move and create cohesive units that move forward towards a singular direction. Individual mastery, right, to be able to manage those relationships and leave others more engaged and better off. And ultimately, the core level, leading yourself first. Focusing on those 4 is a guarantee to improve how your business functions. So you can create that thriving organization of the future, the organization that really unleashes the potential of everybody in the organization. So I just want to stop and say, well, thanks for watching. Thanks for making it all the way through. This is the stuff of my heart. I love business leadership and creating teams and systems. I absolutely love it. Let me ask, I want to pose a question to you. I'd love to see your comments. What's the biggest leadership challenge that you find you're facing, and what do you find in your organization? What are the biggest organizational leadership challenges that you find yourself facing? I'd love to see your comments so I can talk about it in a future video. Make sure you hit also like or subscribe, hit the bell up in the corner to make sure you get access to these videos as soon as they come out, and I'll answer any questions and address any comments you make. So look for that in future videos. And in the meantime, here's to your great success in creating that business leadership excellence in your organization. Bye for now.